flipping it toward which West team would you want to be for the next 6 years, which would take us through the 2020s.
I love that it was 6 years.
6 years, 24 through 30.
Would it have changed if it were only 5 years?
I went 6. I thought it was sexier as a tease. Let's each pick. We'll go in order. But who would you could be any West team. You could have their future for the next 6 years. Who would you pick?
Okay, this isn't a draft. We're just going to kind of go back and forth.
We're just
right?
just.
It's Denver. Jokic is 29, Murray's 27, Gordon's 28, Michael Porter Jr. is 25, and Jokic is going to age well.
That was also my pick. I'm signing up for Jokic, Murray, Aaron Gordon, and whatever they add to this team year to year, and I bet they'll be able to get some free agents who want to be part of this. Number 2 is where it gets interesting, though. Who'd you have?
Oklahoma City. So they've got a top 5 player already in Shea. They have cap space, major cap space this summer, which is part of the
we'll see if they spend
Hayward thing. Yeah, we don't know, but they got to spend something. And they have potentially 15 first-round picks. It could be 9. It depends on the protections and how all this all plays out. And the brilliance of some of the other stuff when I was digging into it with Presti is like he'll lose some picks this year, but it's the 24 draft and they already have these young guys.
Like
so
that sneaky Dallas trade he did where he gave away the pick they had, but all of a sudden now he can swap with them in 28.
Yeah.
I'll push that one back.
If you're really into it, he's got between, I think, 21 and 27 second-round picks. There's 1 year on the books now. They have 6 that are just theirs. There'll be 6 second-round picks. I mean, again, I think people overrate those quite a bit. Those are the hinky stands that just love second-rounders that wrote about it over and over again. I like Ant more, but I can't argue that he's a better statistical player than SGA. So there you go.
I had OKC 3rd.
Okay, make your number 2 case.
I took San Antonio. They have all their own firsts. They have Atlanta's 25 and 27 unprotected first. They can swap with Boston in 28 and Dallas in 30. They have some other picks too. But they also have Victor Wembanyama, who I've been watching more San Antonio than I did in the first part of the year instead of just following Wemby on social media. I think the thing I like about him the most, other than the fact that he's a fucking alien, is 7'5" and, and has 5 plays a game that you're like, I've probably never seen that before. He's got like a really nasty side to him. He's really competitive. I feel like the guy hates losing. It's like, this is probably like the worst year of his life. It fucking drives him crazy to be on a bad team with teammates that aren't very good. And if they can figure out how to put a good enough team around him, I would just rather have that than whatever OKC comes up with, because I don't know how you're going to stop this guy. This is the worst he's ever going to be right now. And he's like 22, 12, and 6 blocks. This is like the fucking basement of where we are with this. And the thing that I was most worried about with him was, the health. Like when you watch even Yao in the early years, you're like, oh man, I don't love how he runs. You watch some of the big guys, like, I don't love that. I like the way he moves. I feel like he's going to have, I'm going to knock on wood. I feel like he's going to have a nice little run here where I don't know. I don't know why I trust it.
Are you trying to guarantee a non-injury stretch?
I'm not trying to guarantee anything. Some people are lighter on their feet than others. And I think he's surprisingly light on his feet for how fucking tall he is. I don't really fully understand it, but he's just very comfortable and coordinated and moves at a certain pace that he's not clumsy at all. Like at all. So I would bet on him second over OKC. It's him and the picks and whatever they could potentially do it. But it's like a 2A, 2B thing for me. I think you made a good case with OKC. Because OKC, you have SGA, you have Jalen Williams, you have Chet, and they're all young and on the way up. I'm not positive that team's going to spend money. I'm still dubious of that part. What happens when you actually have to keep dudes together and have a $220 million payroll? We've just never seen them do it.
But they have to kind of do it, though. Like this is the
We've never
Orlando
seen
thing.
it.
Right. But you have to spend this money while you still have everybody on the rookie scale other than SGA and some of the other contracts, but like Dort's at a really good number. So this is usually what you do is you spend that now and then you worry about it later.
I didn't like the trade deadline. We didn't like it when it happened. And Hayward to me looks like he's just on the other side of the mountain. I don't know how that was their trade. I just don't get it.
Right. We didn't like it because they didn't go for Gafford and they were part of facilitating it. But the Hayward thing cleared up all the extension on Micic. So, and it wasn't working out. Like for whatever reason, he just wasn't playing that well with them. And he was basically like an afterthought. So I thought it was just another way of being like, hey, what if there's somebody this summer that we can add that is in that 30 to 40 range? You know, I don't know who that player is. You worry about him getting in the way of what they do offensively and duplicating some of the stuff. But usually the teams, when they have this kind of talent with so much of it on rookie scales, they'll spend the money now and then kind of worry about it a little bit later. And they got to be to the floor anyway. So the second apron, I'm not exactly saying that here. I'm just going, I like the player part of this because I think there's probably a lot of people who would say, hey, give me the Thunder because of all the picks. And it's like, well, first of all, like I'll just take Jokic.
Take the top
you
three.
Guys, and you guys can figure out the rest.
All right, so I have Denver, San Antonio 2A, and OKC 2B, basically. Who do you have as your third?
I had Minnesota. Because it is
can't
about
argue
the players.
with it.
Right. It's having, look, there's some bad money stuff coming at some point.
Yeah.
You wonder how that's going to go because when they redo Cat and Ant with Rudy's $47 million player option, they're going to be at like $140 million. If you look at the estimates for three guys,
we know how it's going to go. Towns will be traded,
right? And all
that's
the
how
picks
it will eventually go.
You know, this is the bigger part of like, okay, the Rudy thing has been awesome this year, and you know, like he was incredible tonight. Now, granted, it's an advantage for him because of the lack of size, but you know, he had a play where he basically helped off a Draymond on a Steph drive. So Steph kicked it back out to Draymond, who's taking more threes. And he found a way to recover to Draymond and still get out and contest it. Like give it a good contest. And I had to rewind it and being like, he was shading Steph on the drive and a guy that size turned back around to contest Draymond. So the pick stuff
hold on Gobert. Why can't Rudy win most improved? Because Maxi's like the prohibitive favorite right now. And I don't know. Couldn't we have predicted that if Harden was going to get traded from Philadelphia and Maxey was going to have the ball all the time, his stats were probably going to be better? I know he's better, but is it dramatic or is it in line with a guy who averaged 20 points a year last year who's now averaging 26? Like, if we're going to talk most improved, you got to go into like what Jalen Green's been doing the last month of the season, or even something like Rudy, who seemed like his career was over and he was part of the worst basketball trade of this century, now becoming this disruptive defensive force again.
Well, if he wants to get any most improved momentum, he's got to go on SportsCenter and do an interview where he cries. Like Kyle Anderson, we fought, now we high five, you know. And
Kyle and I cried together.
You have the voiceover. It's like, by March of last year, Rudy knew he was the least cool player on the team. And now he's considered one of the coolest. And one friend downloaded Babbel to speak his native tongue. Anyway, so I'm a Kobe White guy, I think.
Was that a Babbel ad?
Yeah, I think we had a Babbel sponsorship.
We did.
So I always like to take care of them. Even
so
if they're
FanDuel has Maxey minus 230, Kobe White plus 160, who's another one. Kobe White was a bench guy last year, and now is this guy who runs offense end of games.
Other than his second year, he's been a bench player his whole career. And now he started basically the whole season. He's averaging 20. Granted, it's more shots, but like when I watch him now,
22 and 6 for 4 months now.
Back to our patience theme.
Yeah. Jalen Williams is like 100 to 1 and Kuminga is 100 to 1. But I think it would have been funny to just put Gobert in there. But that's how dramatic it's been from last year to this year. And I agree with you. The Warriors, and it's weird like watching this version of Draymond too, because you remember the early in the year Minnesota Golden State, they played and Golden State and Minnesota had like a fight. They had a big altercation.
It was 12 games, by the way. Draymond was out.
And Doc said, Doc was on my pod and he was like, this is actually an important moment that this happened because this means Golden State's afraid of Minnesota. Like you don't fight with a team unless you know like they're on your corner now. And since then, now I think how the roles reverse. They get swept for the series. You watch at the end of the game and they're all hugging each other. And it just feels like this version of the Warriors is done in a lot of ways. Anyway.
Did you ever ask him, is that why Kevin Johnson tried to take him out?
And who was the guy who came off the bench in street clothes?
Greg Anthony had like a tight fit from structure. It's an unbelievable fit.
Anyway, you have Minnesota third. And I support it because of the Edwards piece. I had Minnesota fourth. So does that mean you had San Antonio fourth? Or you have Houston fourth?
No. I can't quit the Pelicans.
Oh, you're the Pelicans fourth?
The Pelicans
really?
Fourth. Yeah.
Wow. So you don't have Wembanyama in your top four for team you'd want to be for the next 6 years.
I struggled with all the Texas teams. I wrote all 3 Texas teams down because I knew that the exercise, like if maybe not you, but I thought if other people did this, I think they would just fall so in love with Oklahoma City's draft stockpile that they would just pick them first. And I'm like, yeah, I don't really think that's the exercise. Like I feel bad leaving Luka out.
Yeah,
like,
I'm trying to win titles.
Right. Like I get Luka and I'm still going to name 5 teams ahead of them. Where Houston, this has been fun, but come on. Like I can't put them 5th, even if the cool part of them is you have all these young guys we all like where it's like, what if 1 or 2 of them pop? Where San Antonio feels like they have the one guy that's more valuable clearly than anybody in Houston. Luka's the better player than Wembanyama today, but San Antonio probably says no for that trade, right?
Yeah.
So I did the Pelicans because I like, now granted, I really like what I've seen from them. This has been an unbelievable Zion turnaround from where we were at the in-season tournament in December, where it felt like the national media was really focused and he played like crap and he looked awful. And it was like, is this really how it's going to end? And he's responded big time. I know Ingram's out now. So, the problem is it's the injury history stuff with those guys that you could argue against me. They have a ton of picks. They have all this depth. They can play a bunch of different ways. And San Antonio still has so much work to do around Wembanyama. But this one I might be willing to be wrong on. The first 3 I wasn't.
I had Houston 5th. I had Minnesota 4th and Houston 5th because...
So no New Orleans.
I had New Orleans as a runner-up at 6 because... The thing that surprised me about New Orleans, and I really do like them, I thought Houston versus New Orleans was a great argument. The picks that New Orleans has aren't as great as I think we felt they were going to be 4 or 5 years ago. Now, they're going to probably punt on that Lakers pick for this year because they have their choice at 24 or 25. You punt this year because the draft sucks. 25, now you have your fingers crossed. Like, hey, who knows? That's going to be the most loaded draft of the decade. Maybe we'll get lucky in some way. Houston, I just like the guys in the team, and I love the Brooklyn picks. It's ironic how that played out, where now those Brooklyn picks look amazing, and you never, ever in a million years would have thought that. And Brooklyn took that big chance by trading Durant, hoping maybe the Phoenix picks would kind of cancel out the picks that they were losing to Houston, and they bet wrong. That was a bet they're going to lose. Because I think anybody would rather have the Brooklyn picks than the Phoenix picks. Dallas, I couldn't get there because of they just don't have a lot of outs with this roster. They are locked in now in all different ways. Like they've traded away a bunch of picks. They have losing swaps in 3 of the next couple of years. They're tied to basically Luka and Kyrie and a bunch of role players. And unless Lively can turn into somebody awesome, there's just I don't really see how the ceiling goes up with this team unless Luka just goes bonkers.
Well, I don't know. Is there another level beyond who this guy is now? I mean,
that's what I'm saying. Like, right? could he be a 40-10-10 guy? I don't know.
I don't know if he can be any better, and that's why I flirted with them ahead of New Orleans because Luka's healthy.
Yeah.
But then I had to have assurances. Like, what if I guarantee you 2 more stress-free Kyrie seasons? Does that change? Is that something I could interest you in?
I still would have him 7th. In Utah, I had 8th just because of all the picks.